Good afternoon, Aristo.
Good morning, Ron. How are you today?
Good. I waited till 9 a.m. exactly right on the button.
Yeah, it's 4 o'clock here.
Yeah,
so
okay,
I actually was going to be earlier today, but as I said, I had a flat tire and had to change it. And my spare is probably also flat, however. So
that doesn't sound good.
Yeah, it seems a little depressed, as it were. I don't know if it's completely flat or just low on air, but somehow I'll make it to the gas station and see if I can fill it up and get it the rest of the way. See what happens from there. But it's Friday the 13th, so you know.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, usually it's a lucky day for me. And Friday the 13th, I guess, the story behind it, I'm not sure about this, but it was the day that the French king and pope burned the Templars.
Right, I've read that.
So maybe. By
the way, your video is not showing up.
Oh, it isn't? Oh, let me. Oh, there it is. Let's see. The connection's a little iffy. It goes on and off. But tell me.
That's better. I'm not going to re-edit that. We're just going to leave it in that way because your picture was showing up. There was no image. So maybe what I'll do with this segment is I'll just have me talking with you in the background, and then I'll do both sides. I've never done one that way, but maybe I'll try that. I'll play with it.
So you're going to cut this part off and
No.
we'll start?
No.
Okay. No problem.
No, it's good. It's a laid-back conversation, and we'll title this Friday the 13th.
Exactly. I can't wait till it's over. But it should be, in Greece, the unlucky day is Tuesday the 13th. Because Tuesday is the third day of the week, and, starting from Sunday. So 13 is the unlucky day. Because the days go by gods and planets, and Mars is the planet of Tuesday, and Mars is violent and this and that. And 13 is just a number of instability. But Friday is supposed to be the day of Venus, so it's a day of aesthetics and beauty and love, and I don't see why that could be unlucky.
Especially if it's benefits.
I think it's just the Masons and stuff promoted. It's unlucky for the establishment, probably.
Well, I don't know what to believe anymore. I mean, it just seems like nothing is what I thought it was. So many things are not turning out the way that I thought they would be turning. It's just everything, like I said in my video that went up today, it's just, I'm so impatient with the slow rate of change.
Well, what do you expect when you live in a matrix? It's the matrix goes so deep. Just realizing that it's a matrix isn't enough. Obviously, I mean, how is it a matrix? How are we affected? How much are we mind controlled? And it's a process of discovery. It's not. Most of the solutions that I see assume that we live in the society that we've been taught. That. In the movies, in the movies you see that they admit corruption, they admit that conspiracy, but it's always some crazy person or a small group of crazy people against the correct establishment. And the authorities, the bankers, the politicians usually wise up to that crazy person who's trying to pull something. And it's not the case. It's the opposite. It's that there's very few. The minority are the people that are realizing what's going on. The majority are asleep, and then the controlling establishment across the board is pulling something, and has been for quite some time, and is deceiving us in how they're pulling it. They're trying to overbloat their own power, which is what anybody who tries to screw with you usually does, and at the same time undermine our own capacity for solution, and mix up basically, we keep resorting to what we know. We keep resorting to how because it's what we know. Better the devil you know than the devil you don't. It's an anchor of security, but what if it's a false anchor? What if it's, something that's going to drag us down or has been designed to drag us down? So eventually, we come to points where we need to realize, okay, I'm starting from scratch here. I mean, I have all this experience, but at the same time, from one perspective, I need to approach things like a newborn, to look at my innate abilities to discern and take nothing for granted. Like you said, you don't know what to believe anymore. Well, what if you don't believe anything?
Do you think there's a possibility that there's such a thing as a good matrix? I mean, I don't. I think that all of creation is basically matrices.
Well, what's a matrix? A matrix means womb. Yeah, it comes from the word mother.
Okay, you're right. I didn't think of that, but that's true.
You see,
and it's all that. But the problem is we have a matrix that's controlled by people with malevolent intentions.
But notice how the lingo, how they phrase it. Where did we get this phrase? We got it from a Hollywood movie that allegedly came from people who wanted to inform us on something. However, this Hollywood movies, a friend of mine researched this. They came up with the first version of the Matrix movie, and then the second version had a completely different script. It represented a completely different progression of events, and the upper echelons of the Hollywood establishment came in, the people who funded it, and said, scratch it, you're going to put in this scenario. They changed the script because they freaked out. They wanted to see if people were how they were going to react to something like this, so they'd allowed it to go through. And when people really reacted and took the whole thing like an archetype and became empowered by it, despite the fact that there was a seed of deception in it, naming anything called matrix, basically, or womb, which is the nature of our manifest reality, is bad. And it's an illusion, which
and
is
the divine feminine being ostracized and negated. And are you still there? Are you still there? There you go. You dropped off. Uh-oh, I'm not hearing you. I'm not hearing you talk.
Let me,
All right, now I'm hearing your sound.
Okay, can you see me?
No, I don't see you, but I hear you.
Yeah, the
USB thing is faulty, or
Yes, something isn't right.
Yeah, I didn't want to change the. I'm going to see if. Let me hang up and get back to you and see if this works again. If it doesn't work, then I'm going to change computers. I'll just go to the next one over. And
Yeah, I'll try. I'll try to piece this together because I want to keep it. All right. Well, I saw your image. Now there it is again.
Okay, take two. I changed the
actually we're going to hopefully keep take one and connect this because we were talking about the Matrix and you were saying about the movie and how the second thing they made changes to it.
Well, there was supposed to be a whole different emphasis where certain characters were supposed to be prominent and other characters weren't. The whole scenario of the second and third movies came later as a correction because the whole point of the movie is not to inspire people, but to either have them lose hope. Because if you look at the movie in a certain way, it can be something that can make you lose hope or put you even deeper into a trance. Because in the end, you have the same exact lesson that you have in many other movies. You can't go against City Hall. And you can go against City Hall, but you can't go against the government. You can go against the government, but you can't go against the ones ruling the government. You can't go against the ultimate authority, which in the case of the Matrix movie was the master computer. Even if the master computer has a kind of, and the only way you can even hope to negotiate is if you have help from within the master computer, which in the Matrix movie was a female program, a mother-type Matrix program. So, in essence, the whole idea of the movie originally was to overcome the computers, was to be able to build a human civilization based upon reality, or else one that wasn't based upon illusion. In the end, however, as with all of these movies, they tell us we have to compromise, you can't go against these authorities, they're too big, they're too tough, you need help from within their ranks, you have to do it this way. So the fact that they changed an originally inspired script that, most people in Hollywood, some of them are completely sold out. Some of them, the ones that are blacklisted, are thoughtful. They do the best they can, but most of them compromise, I think. They want to have the
kind. That's true of all the stratas of our culture.
Exactly, but it depends. I mean, in this system, compromise is an art form, and true compromise has to be done to your advantage, so to speak. So it's not really compromise. You're working the situation creatively in order to use it as a resource, and that's the challenge. That's where the intelligence comes in, and you can do this through feeling, whereas the establishment does it through analytic think tanks and predictive zones and things like that in a mechanical way. But the people in Hollywood, for example, like the Coen brothers who came up with this movie, probably wanted to put forth this and said, look, if anybody gets it, they get it. But the establishment probably figured, well, it can go either way. First, we can see how many people really respond to this overall. And they put a lot of money into it and a lot of religious symbolism and it became a blockbuster. And then we'll see how, if there's another track, if they actually get scared by it, if they lose hope, if it makes them more terrified in a way. And it became a trend. It created a whole new terminology. People started waking up because of this movie because it gave them a paradigm on a platter. A way to be able to take all of these ideas that were otherwise considered fringe or, especially the younger generation, fringe or difficult or occultist or whatever, or religious, and to put them in a context that they could actually digest. But the fact is, they wouldn't be able to digest them unless the system itself gave them the means to do so. So we have a tremendous psychological dependency on the system, and this is what the system tried to gauge over the last 20 years. They want to see just how conditioned we are. Because, sometimes people act conditioned, but if you push the wrong buttons, they can completely break out of the trance. If they do a false flag, as you said, these days it's probably going to backfire. And many people have said that's not a card, it's not a trump card you can play really more than once. You can play it on a small scale, but if you really push it, it gets old and it becomes redundant. So they really cannot do that unless they really want to mean business and, do their depopulation thing. There are no more false flags, in my opinion. However, you can threaten people with false flags and freak them out and keep them on their toes, so to speak. If
I think that's actually what they do. I don't think they actually, their false flags now, they almost don't intend to pull off some of the things that they're trying.
It's a rumor mill.
The TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, that could just be a scare tactic that's out there, because we're going to control everything now.
Well, they don't have to tell us when they do these things. I mean, they do them anyways. I mean, Obama signed the NAFTA thing when nobody was around. I mean, there's a whole button. Not the NAFTA, the other one, the one where people can be arrested without trial and.
Oh yeah, right.
And all of these things, and the stuff they're doing on the internet, the way they're controlling stuff. They say now we've signed this agreement, so we have the right to do so. And people protest and whatever, and so they say, oh, we're not signing it, but they're still doing it. The police are harassing people, even though it's unconstitutional. They don't care. These people that tell us, well, the contracts matter, the only reason they use contracts is to lull us, is to put us to sleep.
Yeah, Neil Dyer just pisses me off with his insistence that they have lawful contracts. I mean, it's absolutely asinine to me.
Well, the contract has a psychic power when you buy into it. It has the power to actually condition your own mind to give the other person the benefit of the doubt. It's about trust. Basically, somebody promotes trust using a contract. And when somebody else says, well, the contract is a power unto itself, they're lying. There is no power. But if you subconsciously agree to that contract, then you are giving over your power without even realizing it. That's another story. But the legal form of the contract itself, I don't believe it has any power.
It has no lawful validity because any contract formed in fraud is void. It's null on its face. And that's the law.
Look at civilization. Why are they so into ritual? Pinning medals on people, wearing uniforms, going through all these marching formations and this and that. It's to control the people who are fighting. It's not natural for people to systematically fight en masse. If you're threatened, you fight. But if somebody points a finger and says, kill all these people over there, it's not natural for human beings to do that. So they use these... all of the rituals they use are like the contracts. A contract is like a ritual act in order to gain trust. And it's almost like psychological magic. Automatically, the contract, people see it, and they get hypnotized and say, oh, things are okay now. It's okay. But when the bully knows they cannot beat you, through force, then they use all these means of subversion. And this is where the false matrix, the prison, let's not call it a matrix, let's just call it the prison, because that's exactly what it is. There was a philosopher named Michel Foucault. I took a class on him, but he wrote a book basically about what is called the matrix. And, and it was, I forget what it was, the prison, I think, but he said, look, you can look at our major institutions, education, hospitals, the military, and the prison system, they all function on the same principles. They're exactly the same. They keep people in an enclosed space, they regulate them, and they treat them as objects and control their behavior. All of these institutions that we hold sacred are institutions, there was this guy, Maxwell something, or, Jordan Maxwell. And,
yes. I'm familiar with Jordan.
And, I think the guy is useful to a certain degree. But he gives certain basics. If you listen to one lecture, you've listened to them all. But he says, look, they're all the maritime law thing. It's all based on ritual. Why are these rituals here? To keep our conscious minds asleep and put forth our lemming minds, to bring our lemming minds to the surface, to have us basically, our sense of the need for order and security. And if we try to go against them, then they throw the other side. We're going to collapse society. Everything's going to go to shit. You're all going to die. And then you have all these people from the alternative media telling people, save your, dig a hole in the ground and get in like a badger and have 3 weeks of water. Look, man, if they're going to do something, you're not 3 weeks of water or 6 months even isn't going to do anything. If things go like that, they have satellites. They can just carpet bomb everybody. I don't care how deep you go. What they want to do, however, is they cannot do that because they need mechanized robotic means of subduing the people. Every human being is unpredictable, and that's in our favor. They know that no matter how much they brainwash us, there can be that one button they're going to push that's going to make everything backfire. And they're trying to figure out what those buttons are, but no matter what, the only secure means, they're paranoid people. So the only secure means is to get us into concentration camps and prisons where we're going to build their robot army for them, basically. And the scientists will have, and build just enough like they're doing in China. They start opening factories that are fully automated. Robots are building robots. So what's going to happen with the people then? What's going to happen with the prisons? They're using prisoners right now to build things. The Defense Department is contracting. What happens when they don't need them? You're going to see people, they're going to promote something saying, we have too many prisons and the prisoners are too crowded. They're doing the same thing with in Greece now. They did it and they stopped. They promote it and then they pull it back. And then they started building concentration camps for immigrants. And then they hushed about that. But and then the German guy, like I said before, came over and said, well, just go live in the concentration camp if they take your house. Don't complain to me. That's the way it is, and you can't do anything about it or you're a terrorist, according to the contract. The contract, if we really look at it, says that we're going to die. It doesn't matter. That's the agreement, period. So what can we do? But I'm saying through all of this long rant that we are so conditioned that anywhere we look for security, there's a danger that it's just another form of conditioning. Every piece of cheese we try to grab in the maze can have a little piece of rat poison in it, and we don't even know it. And this is where, on the one hand, things are going slowly because we're going through a minefield, literally, of our own conditioning, collectively and individually. But at the same time, we are conditioned to go slow and give these people time. So, and when we realize this, this is another part of the program that we're shocked and supposedly incapacitated by the damned if you do, damned if you don't presentation. So my whole thing when I'm addressing this all the time is to see, well, anybody who is that meticulous fears their opponent. They fear us. Why do they fear us? What do they sense in us that is dangerous? You know, and how can we access that and bring it to the surface? And two, there are things that they cannot sense in us because they're psychopaths. Psychopaths have a limited perceptual spectrum. One of your posters, I don't know if I should say his name, but he's a British guy, and he is pretty cynical, and you know,
Jazz?
yeah. But you know, he's cynical in a rational way, in the sense that, well, the psychopaths, you know, if they can multi-generationally be disciplined and have patience and do this, well, who said that they're you know, what else do they have to live for? When somebody lives in normal life, they have their family, let's say, they have their relationship, they're committed to these things. When you have a lineage, for example, you have a series of family generations that stay at home, that keep a job, that sacrifice for their children. Isn't that patience as well? Isn't that a commitment to an ideal? Normally, every man reaches a point where they say, I'm tired of my wife. I don't care what they say. You know, it goes through most people. I'm tired of my husband. I'm tired of my wife. And the establishment is encouraging this dissolution of the family, so to speak. But in traditional society, people adhere to an ideal. They multi-generationally adhere to their religion. They adhere to their family values. They adhere to certain moralities. Why are we inferior to these other freaks? Just because they're the ones that promote their adherences, their secret societies. They make a big deal about it. That means they're trying to show off. They're cocks. You know, they're peacocks. They're trying to strut around and make an impression, just like military people do with their badges and their insignia and their suits and their fancy marchings. You know, this is all a sign of weakness. It's not a sign of strength. Everybody knows that, but our minds are constantly warped into bypassing these ways of thinking.
Well, everything is being redefined for us so that the meaning is the opposite of what it actually is. And I mean, I see that in so many areas, especially legalese.
That's the big thing. I mean, as Jordan Maxwell says, that's a big ritual in itself, where you're constantly lied to and put in a position, as you say, of a slave. But it means nothing, literally, because just because somebody calls you a slave doesn't mean you are one. And you don't have to basically submit to somebody just because they present what they do, you know, a fancy bully. So the point is that everything begins here and here, and that this is a priority. If we feel impatient and that nothing is moving where our feet are, where our hands are, and where the world is, then that means that here and here require more attention. This has been what I've been, you know, my perspective all along. And they're afraid of here and here. Constantly, they do things. I notice whenever they do a statistical thing and see people are getting pissed off, the chemtrails appear. Or the news starts spinning certain things. The rat in the maze is starting to gnaw at the wall and trying to dig itself out, and so they throw another piece of dirty cheese on it. Or some kind of cattle prod or something. And we can learn to organize in this manner because this is undetectable. They cannot, unless they put a brain chip in our heads, they don't know what we're thinking. They only know what we're communicating through the media that they can tap into. But still, we can communicate in ways that go over their heads. That's one of the reasons I speak in occult terms. They think they know what these occult terms mean. They don't know how I understand them. But intuitively, somebody else with a heart can sense it. and then gain something. We need to learn to trust our feelings because they are the only untapped resource that they cannot even understand. Everything else they seem to have mapped out, but just because they... So I disagree with Jez when he says that they're smarter than us and they're more disciplined than us and all of this. Of course the bully's going to try to convince you. They've won. I mean, they go by Sun Tzu, the art of war. You know, that says, well, if you really want to win a war, you have 50 more, you've lost your war by half if you have to strike the enemy. You have to make the enemy be defeated without even punching them or hurting them or doing anything. They have to declare defeat on their own. And that's what they're trying to make us to do because they know that there's a big chance that they cannot survive a direct confrontation. I'm not speaking violent confrontation, any uprising of the people. But before the people can rise, there needs to be an organization on the outside, and before that can happen, there needs to be an organization on the inside. And that's where I feel we're finding, and that's why Spirit has given you your family. It's a sort of roundabout answer to a prayer. It's not the answer we want. I've had all these ups and downs, but it's more or less the same thing. It's like, look, you're bringing heaven to earth. You're not plugging it into the world directly. You're plugging it through yourself. You have to turn the lights on first, flick the switch before you see anything. And so we're learning to flick the switches, and at the same time, they're coming in trying to turn them off while they're trying to turn them on and putting false lights and all kinds of stuff. So it's not that easy. Most solutions, as I said in the beginning, assume that we're in some kind of vacuum under normal conditions. We're under attack continuously. Of course it's not going to be easy. And we keep forgetting it because we're conditioned to be disheartened by it instead of enlivened by it. Rise up to the challenge, they say. Well, we hide our heads, whenever the challenge appears. Yes, it's stressful, but how much of it is conditioned? Okay, sorry for that.
No. You said indeed.
No.
It was a one-word commentary.
It's a comment on myself because I realized that, well, this is a discussion and I'd like to hear your side of this.
My side I get to share every day. They don't get to hear you every day, only once a week on this channel. Yeah, I've just been feeling a lot of frustration. I said to my grandson yesterday, my granddaughter bought him a little container of slime. I don't know if you know what slime is.
Yeah.
It's iridescent, it glows in the dark and everything. He opened it in my car when I picked him up from the bus station and spilled it all over the place there. And it took me 10 minutes to clean it up. And I said to them, I said, "You're no earthly good," or you're, how did I say it? But I felt so bad that I said what I said because he just irritated me. And I was quick with my words and judging myself. But I mean, he's teaching me that I have to be patient. And
Don't cry over
I talked to his dad last night because I took his dad to go to hear my little niece. She was in her Christmas program, and they did a Christmas program about ice and snow in Florida. And I thought most of those kids have never even seen ice or snow. But anyway, the dad said, Bubba doesn't understand that I have work to do. And so he demanded constant attention that day that I was so tried. Because he kept coming and wanting more attention, and I kept trying to get my work done. Anyway, yeah, it's definitely grounding, and it's definitely I'm the student here.
In more ways than one. I mean, there's the whole "don't cry over spilled milk" thing. Whenever things have to go a certain way, and that way happens to get disrupted. I mean, yeah, if it's fundamentally against how you feel it should be, then there's a certain, validity. But if it's how you think it should be, because maybe you're afraid that if it's different, you don't want slime in your car. But the interesting thing is, and I don't want my tire to be flat either. That was a pain in the butt changing the tire out in the busy street. But the thing is, if I look at it in terms of what it has to offer me, of, in any way, even if I'm grabbing at straws, it doesn't matter. I become empowered, and if I don't like it, I say, well, here is something that I need to change. What are these forces that are actually putting me in this position? In your case, why is this kid demanding attention?
Pushing my buttons big time.
Exact, to get attention, no matter what. Just like the world, all these bad events sometimes happen in order to get our attention. What is the message here? But the thing is, if you can interact with him in a way that promotes something you need to cultivate, then it's going to be exciting. And he's going to gain from it, and you're going to gain from it, because they say children represent our hearts. The part of our hearts that we don't choose to listen to when they're nagging us and whatever. There's something there. I mean, like I said in previous videos, long before, everything is messy. Reality is a messy thing. It's not a nice, neat, and tidy thing. So there's going to be slime spell. And the fact is that the slime represents him having fun. He got it as a gift to have a good time, and it's slime. I mean, it's not a nice and neat type of thing. It's meant to be sloppy and challenge our sense of order. And so fun, disorder, and if you go against this kind of this need for fun disorder, then there's going to be the other type of disorder coming in. Things are too rigid. They're being choked. There needs to be a certain flexibility so air and blood flow can come in. And when they do, we're going to feel the pins and needles because our limbs are asleep. We're going to feel choked because we're not used to the oxygen. And we're going to want to contract again. So there's all of these challenges. But as we move through these challenges, we resonate. And part of it is the shadow as well. And all of this is a form of shadow. Anything we don't like is a shadow. As we move through this, we resonate energy of resolution, and that energy is picked up by the system because it affects everybody's behaviors in subtle ways, and they pick up on these behaviors collectively, statistically, however you want to say it, and they try to counter it. Even if people don't wake up in terms of a rational system uprising, they're still being people. The oppression now is not against people who talk. Before they used to come and beat people up if they said something. Now they're just coming and beating people up because they refuse to submit. They refuse to submit in ways they don't understand they're refusing to submit. But if they do understand it, they realize that this is a power that threatens the establishment. As for all of these factions that want to fix everything, I've been looking at Benjamin Fulford, and, the guy's basically promoting the collapse of the United States as anybody knows it. He's not promoting the collapse of China. He's also promoting the collapse of Japan now because Japan is allied to the United States and they control that government. And now they're saying there's going to be a war between China and Japan. I call bullshit on that. Any country that has slave labor is not worried about a few islands. And any country whose slave labor is funded and given by the very banks in the U.S. and Europe is not going to destroy that. I'm not saying it's a complete sham, but I'm saying there's a local, local authorities of part of the system want to subdue local authorities by the other because they're disagreeing in something. And they're disagreeing mainly because they don't want each other to have the advantage. And this is not disheartening because we can also learn to play into that. And they know that and they don't want that, But they won't attack anybody anymore for giving out information unless you actually seem to be the leader of a movement that's making a difference. Because at this point, they don't care anymore. The gloves are off, and anybody who goes and says, oh, they're coming, they're going to actually pat them on the back because you're actually like a herald to them. You're making a big noise about them when in reality, the emperor has no clothes, and we keep saying that. But I believe that intending to really, really understand it and look at the lessons in our lives individually will give us the strength to take that next step. If we're impatient, that means we have pent-up energy, and we're not channeling it somewhere. Let's find some place to channel it that has something that gives us the sense that we're doing something constructive, and an honest sense at that. And if we do, we can find that the outer world starts reflecting something.
Yeah. Actually, combining the two times of what we did, it was 8 minutes and 43 seconds the first time till we started getting all those problems, somewhere around that, and now it's 26 almost 27 minutes. So we probably reached the time that we need to wrap it up. And
Yeah.
so anyway, go ahead and do whatever wrap up you feel you need to.
Well, this is a discussion, and we've gone all over the place again, as we normally will.
Do.
And, when I go through my own rants, keeping it at 30 minutes, but this time we both contribute, so it's going to go a little above 30 minutes, and people won't get bored because it's a dialogue. It's a little more interesting. But I've said what I have to say, and, please consider what this video promotes, not promotes, but at least what's expressed here, in a way to somehow balance out maybe your own, what you're expressing in your daily videos. All the frustration and the desire to move things faster. You want to move faster. When you see the desire you want to move faster. Where in your life can you go faster? And then you might realize that you're actually resonating. The pace is picking up on the outside. We have the power, but we need to grasp it where the handle is, and the handle is on the inside. So that's my own opinion today.
Okay, well, thank you, Aristo, and I'll see how I've never pieced two parts together.
I hope
it works. For the first time, it should be interesting. But I expect to be able to accomplish that. And until next time, you have a great week.
You too, Ron.
Thank you.
Take care.